Some people lose money and earn it back. Some people lose love and somehow find the courage to love again. Some people lose opportunities and still manage to create new ones. But there is one thing that lives quietly and never returns. No matter how deeply you regret it, no matter how desperately you beg for one more chance, that thing is time. And the cruelest truth of all is that most people do not understand its value while they still have it. They only understand it when they are forced to look at the damage created by all the moments they thought would always be there. Daniel was the kind of young man who believed life was still warming up. Every morning he woke with the same soft promise whispering in the back of his mind. Tomorrow he would become serious. Tomorrow he would stop wasting his hours. Tomorrow he would begin building the life he kept imagining. Tomorrow he would become the son his father could truly be proud of. But tomorrow kept moving, like the horizon. No matter how much he thought about it, it never came close enough to touch. And so his life slipped away in small, harmless-looking pieces, late mornings, unfinished goals, endless distractions, excuses that sounded reasonable, and that dangerous comfort that comes from telling yourself there is still plenty of time left. His father Elias saw it all. Elias was not a harsh man. He did not raise his voice often, and he was not the kind of father who tried to control his son with anger. He believed some lessons were too important to be screamed. He believed truth, when spoken with calm, could cut deeper than rage ever could. So he watched. He watched Daniel drift. He watched him waste his gifts, postpone his dreams, and treat his days as if they were cheap. And every evening, there was a look in Elias's eyes that Daniel never quite understood. It was not simple disappointment. It was something heavier, something sadder. It was the look of a man watching someone throw gold into the river, knowing they would only understand its worth after it had sunk beyond reach. But Daniel was young, and youth has a strange kind of arrogance. Not always loud arrogance, not always proud arrogance. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it simply sounds like this: I still have time. He truly believed life would wait for him. He believed there would always be another year, another season, another chance to begin. And that belief became the pillow on which he rested. All his laziness, all his avoidance, all his fear. One rainy afternoon, when the sky hung low and grey over the house, Elias opened an old wooden drawer that had not been touched in years. From it, he took out a silver pocket watch. It was old and worn, with scratches across its surface and a chain darkened by age. It was not perfect. It did not look valuable to someone who only understood value through price. But when Elias held it, his hands became careful in a way Daniel had never seen before. He called Daniel over and placed the watch gently into his son's palm. This belonged to my father, Elias said. Then it belonged to me. Now I want you to keep it. Daniel looked down at the watch and smiled politely, but not deeply. To him, it was simply an old family object, a keepsake, a sentimental thing people pretended to treasure because it made them feel responsible. He thanked his father, slipped it into his pocket, and by the end of the night, he had already forgotten about it. But that was not the saddest part. The saddest part was what happened after. Days became weeks, and weeks became months. Daniel continued living the same way. He slept too long. He delayed what mattered. He ignored the life that was asking to be built. He spent energy avoiding effort and called it rest. He said he was thinking, planning, preparing, when in truth he was only postponing. The pocket watch sat on a shelf in his room, ticking softly, almost invisibly, like a truth too gentle to force itself into the life of someone who did not want to hear it. Then Elias became ill. At first it was easy to dismiss. A little fatigue, a little coughing, more silence than usual, slower steps in the hallway, longer pauses at the table. But sickness often arrives like dust. It does not always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes it simply darkens the room little by little until one day you realize the light is gone. Daniel noticed the change, but for a while he refused to name it. The father who once moved with steady strength now needed to sit down more often. The hands that had fixed, built, carried, and protected now trembled around a cup of tea. The voice that had once filled the room with calm certainty now came out softer, thinner, as if life itself had begun pulling away strand by strand. And for the first time in many years, Daniel felt something cut through his excuses. Fear, not the abstract kind, not the distant kind. Real fear, the kind that makes your chest tighten because suddenly time is no longer an idea. It is a door slowly closing. He began sitting beside his father in the evenings. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes Elias only stared through the window as if listening to something beyond the rain, beyond the wind, beyond the ordinary sounds of the world. Daniel sat there in the silence, unsure what to say, feeling the weight of all the conversations he had never bothered to have. One night, Elias noticed the pocket watch in Daniel's hand. He smiled faintly and asked, "Do you know why I gave it to you?" Daniel looked at him and shook his head. Elias reached out, closed Daniel's fingers around the watch, and said in a voice so soft it almost broke the room, "Because I could not give you my years. I could only give you what those years taught me." Daniel said nothing. He couldn't. Elias looked at the watch and continued, "Every tick you hear is not just sound, it is life living. When you are young, you think it is slow. Slow enough to ignore, slow enough to waste. But one day, you wake up and realize it was never standing still, never waiting kindly in the corner for you to become ready. It was passing through your hands the whole time." Something inside Daniel cracked open at that moment. All at once, the watch became something else. No longer an object, no longer a family relic, no longer a polite gift from father to son. It became a mirror. In every tiny movement of its hands, he could hear the mornings he had thrown away, the responsibilities he had delayed, the apologies he had never spoken, the dreams he had treated like decorations instead of duties. He realized he had not been resting. He had been hiding. Hiding from pressure, hiding from failure, hiding from the possibility that trying and failing would hurt more than never trying at all. But the deepest pain was still waiting for him. It was not only that he had wasted time, it was that he had wasted it while someone who loved him was running out of theirs. That truth changed him, not in a dramatic overnight way, not in the loud cinematic way people talk about transformation. Real change is often quieter than that. It begins in shame, in grief, in honesty. It begins when illusion finally loses its power. Daniel started waking earlier. He finished what he started. He listened more than he spoke. He stopped romanticizing potential and began respecting action. He sat longer with his father, asked deeper questions, paid attention to stories he had once ignored. He treasured ordinary evenings, simple meals, shared silence, even the sound of his father breathing in the next room. Because suddenly, the ordinary was no longer ordinary. It was sacred. Daniel began to understand that discipline was not punishment. It was gratitude in action. It was the way a person says yes to life before life is gone. He learned that procrastination is often more than laziness. Sometimes it is fear wearing comfortable clothes. Sometimes it is self-doubt pretending to be caution. Sometimes it is the foolish belief that later will always be available. But later is one of the most dangerous lies the human heart can believe. Then winter came, and one morning Elias was gone. The house became unbearably still. No footstep, no quiet wisdom, no chair creaking at the table, no familiar presence filling the empty spaces between walls. Only absence, only memory, only the old watch, still ticking as if nothing in the world had changed, even though Daniel's whole world had. He cried with a grief too heavy for words. But beneath that grief was another pain, the pain of finally understanding what his father had tried to teach him long before sickness arrived. The real inheritance had never been the watch itself. It was the awakening hidden inside it. It was the lesson that life is not measured by how long it lasts, but by how honestly it is lived while it is here. Years passed. Daniel did become the man his father had hoped he would become. Not perfect, not unafraid, not untouched by weakness, but awake, present, intentional. He worked with sincerity. He loved without postponing the important words. He treated mornings like gifts instead of guarantees. And whenever he felt himself drifting back toward comfort, back toward delay, back toward that old illusion that there would always be more time, he would hold the pocket watch to his ear and listen. Tick, tick, tick. And each sound reminded him of the same truth. Time is not your enemy, but it will never become your servant. It moves whether you honor it or not. It passes whether you rise or not. It leaves whether you are ready or not. Maybe that is the lesson most people spend half their lives avoiding. We are not ruined because we have made mistakes. We are not beyond saving because we have wasted years. But there comes a moment when grief must become responsibility. A moment when regret must stop looking backward and finally begin shaping what remains. The lost hours are gone, but the living hour in your hands still asks a question. What will you do with me? So if you have been waiting for the right time to begin, to heal, to forgive, to speak, to work, to love, to become the person you know you were meant to be, hear this clearly. The right time does not arrive with permission. It is already passing through your hand. CTA, if this story stayed with you, write in the comments one thing you refuse to postpone any longer. And if someone you love needs this reminder, share this video with them, subscribe to the channel, and stay here for more stories that don't just speak to the mind, but awaken the heart.